This is Impact Healthcare, people and strategies that are disrupting the health benefits industry. And now, here's your host, healthcare benefits industry expert and the originator of the transparent health benefits movement, Lester Morales.
Welcome back to another episode of Impact Healthcare. And, I get lucky at times in this business. The insurance business probably sounds really boring to most of you listeners unless you're in the business. But I have met some just amazing people, and I've become now friends with a lot of my clients. And this is a guy that I now consider a friend. We make fun of each other like we've known each other for years. Zac Hart, welcome to Impact Healthcare. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, Lester. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. So I always like to start with tell us about you, tell us about your great firm. I also think that people that play in my sphere, right, the people that get up every morning with a little bit of fire in their belly to be what I call salmon, right, swim upstream to try to do it a different way. There's a reasoning behind it. There's a fire in their belly. If there's a specific thing that fires you up about this business, give us a little bit of that as part of your introduction as well.
What gets me fired up? I don't know. I guess I've been in the business for about 20 years and a little over 20 years, which is crazy. Just getting to talk to different people all the time, getting to work, we work with all kinds of different businesses and sort of working through, what they're dealing with, understanding, what they're doing, kind of their, risk issues, opportunities, and strengths. That might not sound that exciting to know everybody, but it does to me. Also, walking in a room, you get to walk in these boardrooms, not so much anymore, but we used to have a Teams call with a bunch of folks who are a lot smarter than you are or I am, and they have no idea what the heck I'm talking about. But so that's kind of fun.
Yeah. So Zac Hart happens to be in the name of y'all's agency. Talk to me about the agency, the history, how you got in the business. I'm curious.
Sure. So, guess back, about 20 some years ago, I got back from, living in San Diego, living that lifestyle, and decided I wanted to give this a shot. Saw my dad, my grandfather were in the business, and they seemed to have time to spend with their kids, and we could go on vacation every year and lived a pretty good life. So I wanted to give it a shot. Had to go work selling life insurance for a couple years. Worked at New York Life, and learned a lot. Put on a suit every day. Called folks at their dinner table at 6:30 at night and tried to convince them that they might need some more life insurance, which really wasn't that fun. It was a good way to cut my teeth, I think. Got into, after a few years, decided I wanted to come work at the agency and, work with business owners and talking with them. So, began focusing on compliance and, kind of trying to reach out to HR directors and talking to them how I could help them from a compliance perspective and everything that they were dealing with as a way of bringing value. And then, talking with them obviously about their employee benefits. The ACA occurred, and, we're a full lines independent agency, right, both property and casualty and employee benefits. So when the ACA happened, that freaked me out a little bit. So I decided I wanted to, try to write some more property and casualty insurance. So really got into that, and my book of business, became pretty balanced from there. And I guess everything went along kind of as it normally does. I think in this business, if you it's not easy. Nothing happens quick. I don't think, at least it didn't for me. But it was something that, I think if you continue to lay bricks, you continue to try to be a resource, for organizations and bring value to them, in and outside of just talking to them about insurance and benefits. If you do that, then, things start to come together, and, they did for me, I guess. Yeah, so, that's how it got me to where I am today.
So you mentioned a couple key words I want to ask you about. You mentioned independent agency. I started my career off at one of the big houses, and now a lot of my clients are folks like you. Talk to me about your thoughts about why you guys really strive to remain fiercely independent.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking. So, you and I have both been in this business for a while and seen the consolidation, right? Especially, over the past 10, 15 years or whatever, independent agencies like ours are bought or consolidated into one of the large brokerages. We've really intentionally stayed away from that. We think that it's a competitive advantage for us. We don't respond to RFPs. Our approach, as you know, through meeting each other with BIGN, is we always ask our prospect to allow us the chance to kind of go through a process to learn about their organization and kind of discover how we can help them, rather than, responding to an RFP, walking into a room, giving a dog and pony show about all of the stuff that we can do for them. We think going about things in that way creates much more of a trusted advisor relationship, which is exactly what we're looking for.
So knowing the organization, you'd said it, the BIGN, they teach a process, right? Having a process, and I think the term on the property casualty side you guys use is risk profile improvement. Hey, what things can we do right now that when it's time to talk about your renewal or things of that nature with risk management techniques and loss control, how do we do things ahead of time so that you look prettier at the end, right? We pay less claims, we don't pay them. And it's interesting. That's why I think the bondage of, the sides of the business now with the way we're approaching health benefits really rang true. Talk to me about now coming some of the similarities, because, I would imagine a couple of years ago, you would be like, hey, property casualty is over here, benefits is over here. There really is no linkage outside of it's both connected to the organization. Now that we've been, kind of changing the way we have these conversations, what's your thoughts about that linkage in that conversation?
Sure. Yeah, it's great. So you really got to, you have to, I think one of the main things that you got to do is talk to a cross-section of stakeholders in an organization. Get an idea from them. And we call our process, by the way, SRM 28, or Strategic Risk Management 28, because we technically were started in 1928. But getting an idea of a cross-section rather than just talking with, only the CFO or only the COO or maybe, the HR director or one or two of them, ask to have a conversation with a number of different folks in the organization to get a feel for what they think are the risk issues, opportunities, and strengths. And when we do that, like you said, we come up with a number of different ways to help. And I think since meeting you, I guess maybe, what was that, 5 years ago or so, something?
I think 4. Yeah, 4.
5 years ago. The conversation has changed to, how are you measuring the success of your employee benefits plan, specifically your health and RX plan, and understanding what that answer is, and hearing them talk about it. And, we think, from a benefits advisory perspective, there's a number of things that we can help with, in and outside of employee communications, compliance, technology, benefits admin. There's a lot that goes into it outside of just the health insurance and the RX, but being able to talk to them about their spend and where that money's going and how it can be more effectively utilized is different than what we used to do before, where it was more along the lines of, these are the different carriers out there, the large book of carriers out there. These are kind of the different plan models that you have access to. We can help them obviously with all of their, employer, employee contribution strategies, et cetera. But being able to understand where the money's going and how the employees are actually utilizing the plan and putting strategies in place to really, really affect that spend is something that I wasn't doing before.
So I want to ask you a question. You have that conversation ahead of time. So, hey, employer, both sides of the business, how are you actively managing, your stuff, right? Your benefits coverage, your P&C coverage, your liability, all of these things. When you ask the question on the health side of the house, what was the conversation? What was the answer you got most frequently? That's question number one. The follow-up question to that is, as you think back even in your own toolkit, 3-4 years ago, what was the number one strategy you were using to help clients lower their health insurance company? And it's a little bit of a loaded question because
I think the answer to this question.
Yeah. So what was the number one question when you asked, how are you grading what you're doing? What are you doing? What was the number one thing you saw there?
Probably the, how effective are we at, they were saying, oh, well, we've been able to keep our increases down to X percent. So they're using it as a percentage of increase year to year based on their expiring plan. Was probably the number one response.
And I love that benchmark, right? Hey, benchmark against all of the other people who are also super unhappy with how much they pay for healthcare. Nice job, industry. And when you kind of like look in the mirror now, and it's one of the things I appreciate about you, and I'll say you're not an old dog, because I think we're right at the same age. I can't say old dog. But like at the end of the day, like you did have to reinvent yourself. But the reality of it is what you could do, what you were talking to with clients before and after you've reinvented yourself are quite remarkably different. Would you agree to kind of that?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I don't want to disagree with you on your own podcast, but
I don't. Hey, this is open dialogue.
I don't think that we reinvented ourselves. I think that in the process that we go through, to discover how we can help, I think that it's an additional tool, albeit a pretty big tool, in our tool belt of how we can help our clients. Right? Okay. It's something else to talk about, and we meet them where they are. There's employer and clients that I have that have a few hundred employees that are fully insured, and for whatever reason, we talk about this, and spend is obviously a consideration for every business. But if they're not ready to make a change, then and move towards a more, I guess, modernized, maybe that's not the best word, but more involved,
proactive, like involved,
health plan model, then we're good with that. There's plenty of ways that we can help, and we just help understand what's out there and what's available.
So maybe let's take a couple of the things you have learned and talk about those and talk about them in a way from an education standpoint. Hey, the listeners that might be in your market listening to this, some education for them, and really, education's one thing, but what does it really mean to them? I think it is where I'd love to dig in. So, when you think of like, hey, the last couple of years of sharpening your tools, and now you got that different tool set, what's a couple of things that come to mind?
That though what you talk about on this podcast, and you and I talk about every time we speak, can make a whole heck of a lot of sense from a dollars and cents standpoint, and for a lot of other reasons too. And it's an amazing thing to be able to talk to employers about, quote unquote, providing no cost health plans to their employees, which we can do and are doing. That's a pretty cool thing to be able to talk about. You're not going to be able to do it unless, and it's not going to work unless you establish yourself as a trusted advisor for this employer. I don't think you can walk in, even though it might be true. You give me the data, Mr. Employer, and, Lester and I will go back. The low-hanging fruit is the prescription drug data. It's crazy, how that is actually working. You can get that prescription drug data from any employer, it seems, that, that's on one of these traditional large carrier plans or bundled. A bundled self-insured plan is like, I can't, it just, you salivate when you look at these employers that are on these bundled self-insured plans. That you can save them, a significant amount of dollars, millions of dollars for, employers with, over 1,000 employees, give or take, on these plans. But you can't walk in there and just say that to them without establishing some sort of credibility and some sort of willingness to want to learn about the organization and understand how you can help and gain their trust. That's kind of the biggest thing. Like, it's at the beginning, I was like, oh my gosh, we can save this employer X just by changing the logo on their employee's medical card from, CVS to one of the other transparent PBMs that we're working with. Wow, this makes so much sense. They're definitely going to do this. Like, unless you've established that trust and, they want to work with you, then they're not going to do it. That's
so. I want to dig into that a little bit and make sure kind of folks understand that's a two-sided part of that street, right? Meaning you as the advisor have to be willing to dig a little more, right? This conversation, this work, from the amount of work you got to do up front to get the data, to get all this, blah, 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 the implementation, the education, the ongoing, everything's changes hard, right? So it's a little bit harder, if not, meaningful harder. But the outcome is there. So you as an advisor have to be willing to say, hey, I'm willing to work harder to make an impact. But on the other end of this, the employer has to be willing to get out of their comfort zone. And so it might be a conversation that, tell me the other 500 people in my square mile who are doing this. That might not necessarily be somebody. There might not be somebody who they know who's doing this. So there has to be that. Talk about that and what you've seen, maybe the commonality of the traits of the employers who are willing to take that, baton and run with it, because, we'll get at the end the results of those. But when you look at your clients that have been the first movers, the early adopters, is there a commonality there?
Frustration. I think the commonality is frustration with, what they've been dealing with. And, again, we've taken the time to we have those, the folks that have moved forward are accounts that we have, established relationships of trust with, that have listened to us tell the story. We've shown them the data, and they've decided, it's time, and they've fought with us to get the data. And once we have it and can show them how, what can be done, then they move forward. And man, like I've said before, I think I've said it to you in a couple meetings, I've never had so much fun. I think we probably make less money on the accounts that we do this on, but I've never had so much fun, working on, making the type of impact that we're making on the accounts that we move to one of these unbundled, transparent models.
I gotta unpack this because it's obviously near and dear to my heart, right? One, the thing that we talk about the most is healthcare isn't broken, right? It's completely designed wrong. One of the things you just said, is a perfect conduit to that says in the regular world where you are getting a commission on the premium, and every year the premium goes up, you get a raise. In this world, that's not the case. So you could be potentially making a little bit less money. You as an advisor, so that's good for the client. Check. We're checking the client's box. Two, I love that you said you're having more fun because at the end of the day, you don't wake up for just the paycheck. If you did, I mean, again, your name is on the door. You wouldn't have to work as hard as you do to be able to do this. So you're having more fun. And I think the linkage between the two, which, a shameless plug on the name of the podcast, you said because of the impact that we're able to have on the employees. And that's the coolest thing about this is driving value to the person who's actually using it helps the employer and helps you, maybe not necessarily monetarily. In my opinion, I think it all evens out, if not surpasses in the long run. But you get up every day with a little bit more pep in the step. You also said something about data. I want to dig into that data piece a little bit. You'll send me an email and you say, hey, I got this group and blah blah blah. And the first conversation I'll have is, okay, what data do we have? Hey, Zach, I need you to go back and get this. And I remember the first couple of conversations we had is seemingly we're not asking for data that should be proprietary. Like, hey, give us the top 100 drugs that an employer has spent on the plan and show us how much they paid for that. That's actually a tough request. Talk to me about what your perception has been and your experience has been obtaining data for your client on behalf of your clients.
It's extremely, extremely difficult. The data that you think, the first time, a couple times I asked for it, I figured we could get it, no big deal. I was the advisor on the account. These were reps at the large carrier that I had a relationship with too. So I figured when I'd give them the ask, I'd be able to get it. And it's really hard to get. That's another piece to that puzzle. And we talk to the client about, okay, we're going to ask for the data and this is what's going to happen. And we lay it out for them. We're able to do it the first few times, but we can lay it out for them. And it happens the same way every time. It's a pushback. This is confidential information. Here's an NDA to sign that basically says, if we give this to you, you can't do anything with it. So you need to prep. You need to prep that client or prospect if you're there. I guess I'm talking to other advisors out there. If you're there at that stage with the prospect, where they've given you the green light to look at something like this, and you've established some sort of a relationship with them, you need to prepare them that it's not going to be easy to get, and they're going to get a lot of pushback.
So, remember the audience is both employers and advisors. So speak to an employer like you're educating them, because that's the frustration piece of it. And it doesn't really matter. Everybody's frustrated with the process. Why? I guess it's going to boil it down. Why does it have to be so hard? So let me ask you, the first time I gave you the request and said, hey, Zach, I need this, did you feel it was onerous? Did you feel like we were asking for, like, I need the secret, I need the secret ingredients in the Polynesian sauce at Chick-fil-A? Like, I mean, it didn't seem like it was at least to me, I look at it like, I don't know, like, show me what drug was, prescribed and picked up. Where was it picked up? And I don't know, can I have the address of the store and, the code of that particular drug? Like, it'd be like your auto mechanic, like telling you like, hey, you gotta go get this specific part because you can tell me a battery or muffler or this, but like if it's not for the right car and you didn't get it at the right place, like I'm not gonna be able to know that. Like, talk to me, like, why? Like, did you feel it was onerous, and why do you feel it's been so hard?
So I didn't, because like I said, we, full lines agency, I work in both the employee benefits and the property and casualty insurance world. And I likened it to asking for loss runs from a P&C carrier. Everybody knows what you're doing when you're asking for loss runs, but you get them. You get them and you get them in a couple days and move on. It's not.
That's an interesting. I don't know that I've ever thought about this because I don't do P&C. So at the end of the day, what clients on the P&C side call premium, the P&C carrier calls revenue. So we still have that kind of misalignment of incentives, if you will, but you don't have this pushback on that side no matter what. Like, this is a rare pushback that you get, or like, is it sometimes? Is it seemingly a bunch easier on that side of the business than it is on this side of the business?
It's a totally different story. Yeah, it happens quickly, easily, and it's really a non-issue.
That's wow, bizarre. So let's talk about this one little new thing you've learned about called the Consolidated Appropriations Act. That when we talk about how big of a pain in the keister it is to get data, we now know that we've got what was seemingly to most people a pain in the rear, right? Another regulatory thing, probably brought down by a bunch of people who don't even know what the heck that they actually put in writing, right? Now that you've learned a little bit about the CAA, talk to me about your feelings around it.
It's an opportunity to help, I think. I mean, you could view it as an advisor, as, something else that we got to, help our clients deal with. But, that might not move the needle for them in terms of their, overall risk management, and employee benefit spend. But it's an opportunity to bring more value, I think, to your clients, because they have to deal with it. They have to, there's a movement towards transparency and political, I guess, feelings aside. This was a solid move, in my opinion, by the administration to put this in play, to begin to, what I see it as an arming of employers, hopefully, and advisors, to be able to have access to data, to be able to advise their clients more effectively.
Let me ask you a question. You're an employer, right? Your name's on the door. You have employees. You manage a business. When you think about this mess that we call health insurance, are you too thinking of it? Yeah, I'm an advisor over here, but like when I think about running a business, do you also like kind of see that weird part about like, I manage every other expense here. We know a little bit, like we know how much a paperclip costs, in the supply room, but most employers don't know here. So that CAA, to your point, the opportunity, what it basically is saying is, hey, you are a fiduciary, Mr. Mrs. Employer. You got to know where your costs are coming from. That data allows you to dig into that a little bit more. We've talked to some of your employers about it. What's been the reaction from that standpoint? That do they know, they not know, they think it's the same thing? How's that conversation been? Or maybe said a different way, I know what the answer is because most of your clients didn't know about it. So then I'm going to say, what if you were talking to a room full of employers? Would you tell them about that CAA?
Well, I think the reaction so far has been, okay, what is this? Guys, how do we deal with this? The carriers are basically saying they got it. Just kind of check these boxes and, we can help put this to bed for you. And, our responsibility is to communicate what the message is from the carriers to the clients. I think we're talking about the RxTC right now. So we put that forth, and, for the most part, at this point in time, like, employers are kind of trying to, move it off their plate and not so much deal with it at this point in time. Again, all we can do is kind of talk to them about what might be in their agreements in terms of gag clauses, and the fact that with the RxDC, they're really not, getting the information that they're going to have, they have the right to have access to. I'd say, right, but at this point in time, I don't think that folks have really wanted to dive in and deal with it as of yet.
Which, hey, that makes sense, right? It wasn't on my plate yesterday. It's now on my plate. I have no idea what it means. I don't know anything about it. Like, it's all new, so it makes sense. I want to go and dig underneath that, and then we're going to end with some thoughts about, hey, at the end of the rainbow, what's there. But your client, this is a prospective client for you. You have a great relationship. They wanted you to look at some things. They said to you, hey, our advisor, one of the largest advisors there are in the country, said that they and one of the largest insurance companies in the world said, no, we got it. We filed your gag clause attestation for you. When we took a look at the data, what was found?
A whole lot of gag clauses.
So carrier said we got it. Broker said we got it. When it comes down to it, and I remember the number because it surprised me, there were 21 gag clauses in their contract. Do you remember the potential penalty for that client?
I think you're putting me on the spot. I think it was like $90 million or something.
$90 million. So I look at that, I'm like, holy cow. This gift, CAA, if an employer, to our earlier conversation, doesn't look at this, all this new stuff as an opportunity, then they're just going to keep renewing and doing all the same old things. And in my opinion, we've read that book. We know how that chapter, ends. The clients that have listened to you, the clients that have pushed to get their data, the clients that you have put the data in front and you've done the analysis, what's been the results? Let's talk about a couple case studies and bring this real that, hey, at the end of the day, the end of the rainbow, there actually is that little pot of gold. Like, it might be a hard rainbow to find. That leprechaun might be, a little bit difficult to get, but at the end of the day, there is a little pot of gold. Let's talk about a couple case studies. What's at the end of the pot of gold?
So I'll give you one. So there was an employer, few hundred employees, client of ours that was part of a larger group that broke away. That it was a larger group. We were the advisor for them. It's the larger group, and they were purchased by private equity, and private equity likes to put their folks in play. But we kept the smaller group of a few hundred folks, and we had to renew them the first year the way they had it. Like I talked about earlier, they were in one of those. The larger group was in a bundled UHC OptumRx self-insure arrangement, and there's a story why we had to keep them in there for a couple years. But we watched that first year occur, and what happened was the folks that moved to this smaller group out of the larger group, we didn't know it at the time, but they got it seemed like most of the sick people are the high utilizers. So that first year in 2023, we watched them over 6 months. I mean, the claims were outrageous to the point where they have a they've got an ag claim going in their stop loss from 2023. It was bad. So, about 6 months into it, we could see the direction this was heading, and we were like, we gotta do something different. We already knew at the initial renewal coming into 1/1/23, we had to keep them the way they were. We knew that having them in the bundle arrangement with the RX the way it was going to be more expensive, but we did it. But as of about June 2023, we started working on, okay, guys, this is what we're thinking in terms of how an unbundled plan could look like. Brought you in to help tell the story. They trusted us. They believed in what we were telling them. So we moved them. We unbundled them, put them with UMR and put them with, I forget which was the PBM we put them with.
I believe it was
Drex,
yeah.
For instance. And then we also put in an HRA, employer-sponsored HRA. So what we did was we actually made the benefits richer for these employees going into 1/1/24. And we did it because the plan was structured overall from a more consumer-eccentric model. Like, educate the employees on how they can most appropriately spend their dollars to seek the highest quality care at the most appropriate price. We did that, and giving the employees a richer benefit plan has driven again, the claims are still a little bit immature, but through the first 4 months, RX spend is down about 50%. People are utilizing the third-party advisory firm to seek care, and we've got a meeting with actually that employer later on this week to talk to them about how things are going, and it's going to be a super fun meeting. We're going to point out exactly what's happened, and it's a huge success.
So, in that scenario, so employees got a better benefit. The client was projected to save money as well. And maybe save money is the wrong term. They were not going to spend as much as they would have they stayed doing what they were doing. And now, call it 5 months through the year, you're seeing that actually play out. And if we take that prescription drug to the tune of about a 50% savings.
Yep. Yeah. It's been great. It shows you. And we've also done, you can also, even within a fully insured model for those smaller employers, you can do some things to create more visibility around the spend, to provide lower cost or zero cost benefits to employees. You just got to try to get your hands on the data and do the work.
And if we take the commonality between all of the strategies, it's also being okay ensuring that you are going to require, encourage, incentivize, push, force, kick, steer, whatever you want to say, the employee, the member, to be a better consumer, to think before they access the same old thing. And in all of those models, I can get this medication over here and I can get it for free, or I can go do it the way I did it yesterday and I'll have to pay. I can go get this healthcare over here. I can call the advocate and they're going to tell me the highest quality and I can get that for free. Like, in all of those scenarios, it does require the consumer of healthcare to do something different. Let's go before and after. That conversation to a typically HR, but let's just say to any person in the employer, seems a little bit foreign. Some might say intrusive. What did your clients think before? And now that they're seeing it play out, what do they think afterwards? And also, if there's any employee perception of this, I'd love to know that as well.
Well, I think when we showed them the data, when we were able to wrestle the data, and we weren't even able to get everything that we needed, but we got most of what we needed. So conceptually, they understood, that the way that their current plan was set up, they weren't really sitting on the same side of the table as their vendors or insurers. There was the financial model wasn't such that they were ensured that what was occurring was in the best interest of the organization and the people and the employees and the members. So what we did was say, hey, look, even though we can't get you all the data that we need, conceptually, this is what will be occurring. You're going to be in a much more transparent plan with partners who are not making money on your healthcare spend. They're providing you a service. They're adjudicating the claims. They're getting you your prescriptions. And based on that, again, and we trust a relationship with this account. They believed us, and they should have. And it's worked out so far. It's been great.
Have you heard anything, and maybe the answer might be no, but have you heard anything from the members? So, I know there's on the prescription drug side, there's people that have gotten free medications. On the HRA side, they're working with, a vendor that has an advocate and says, hey, go here, and they get the reimbursement. Have you heard anything from members?
Yeah, well, what we did was for this particular account, what we did was there was on the RX, my team actually from our office identified a number of employees who are on specialty meds and actually reached out to them personally rather than just having Drexy do it. So we actually spoke with them, and they were a little bit taken aback by the fact that we were like, hey, look, we can source this medication in a smarter fashion, and we're going to eliminate your out-of-pocket costs. And they were a little bit surprised at that. But, everybody watches the news and understands that, the way that, the pharmacy industry is working isn't exactly as well as it could be. So they understood that story, and, they were appreciative to hear from us. But I guess that was a big one for sure. Also for the advocacy for this particular group, presenting it as a new benefit to employees was something I think that struck home. Like employees saying, wait a minute, if we just follow this path, like we're going to get a reimbursement. It's not going to cost us anything. I had a conversation with one employee in particular. I personally had a conversation with them about, why this makes sense. Brought them to the website of the advocacy group and talked to them about it, and they were surprised. But again, they watch the news and understand how things are working and how things need to be improved. So very positive.
Awesome. Well, Zac, this has been fun, and I love the fact that this from your standpoint, this is all real, right? This is like the journey that you have taken, your agency has taken, and it is amounted to a more tools in your toolbox to help. If there's an employer out there or somebody out there that listen to this and like, hey, I'm in the DC area, I want to know a little bit more about HHS or Zac or whatever, where can somebody follow you, find you, know more about you? Where can they do that?
Well, active on LinkedIn, so everybody, just definitely check me out on LinkedIn. I don't know like my URL on LinkedIn off the top of my head, but you can definitely do that. Zachary Hart, Hodge Schleifer, www.hhsinsurance.com. Come check us out there. And yeah, I guess that would be it. I don't think I'm going to throw out my phone number on the.
No worries. Well, Zac, thanks so much for sharing the good news, sharing the real life examples, and thanks for being a leader in willing to roll up the sleeves, get dirty, and get outside of your comfort zone, because I think you're already starting to taste the reaping of the reward, and it's only going to get better. So thanks so much.
Yeah, Lester, thank you, and look forward to continuing to work with you, man. It's been great.
Awesome. And to our Impact Healthcare crowd, thank you so much for tuning in. The only way we are going to teach more people about these strategies that are impacting real life humans every single day is for you to share. So please make a comment. Let us know what you think. And if you could think of somebody that you should share this with, go ahead and share it. And until next time, we'll see you later. Let's remember, you could do it. You got to lead it, but we could all impact healthcare. Thanks so much.
You've been listening to Impact Healthcare, people and strategies that are disrupting the health benefits industry with Lester Morales. Remember, the journey to getting 20% savings on your healthcare benefits starts with total transparency. Remember to subscribe to the Impact Healthcare podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.